You haven't made a mistake. You're not too late. And no, you haven't fallen off track. What if I told you, right now, in this very moment, you are standing exactly where your soul intended you to be? Imagine everything you believed about life, death, and destiny dissolving like mist in morning light. Imagine discovering that what you thought was reality was the dream. And the moment you've called death is actually the moment you awaken. This isn't metaphor. This isn't philosophy. This is the deepest remembering your soul has longed for. What if everything you fear, the loss, the aging, the letting go, isn't a tragic ending, but a sacred unfolding? You weren't born to chase survival. You didn't come to master perfection. You came to remember, to awaken, and to rise. Let that settle. Feel it in your chest. You've spent years navigating responsibilities, deadlines, and invisible expectations. You've laughed, you've cried, you've sacrificed for others, and you've whispered prayers into dark ceilings, wondering if anyone was listening. And yet, through all of that, your soul never stopped singing. Even in your lowest moments, something inside you still burned. A knowing, a flicker, a whisper saying, "There is more." You see, before you ever drew your first breath, your soul stood in a realm beyond time. It wasn't alone. It was surrounded by guides, companions, radiant beings who knew you intimately, and together you reviewed possibilities, entire lifetimes, like trails of light branching through eternity. You didn't come here randomly. You chose this life, this body, this family, even the timing. Yes, even the pain. And that decision wasn't made from a place of fear or duty. It came from love, from purpose, from a vision so vast your conscious mind could scarcely hold it. Your soul saw a path filled with lessons, breakthroughs, and transformations. It saw moments of loss, not as punishments, but as sacred doorways. It saw heartbreak, not as failure, but as the furnace where empathy is born. And yes, it saw joy, radiant, golden joy, etched into your blueprint like music waiting to be played. But let's pause for a moment. Feel this truth. You are not a mistake. You are not broken. And nothing you've lived was wasted. Now, imagine waking from a vivid dream, only to realize that all you ever feared was a shadow. Death was not the end, but the doorway, a return, a remembering. And as you passed through that veil, you didn't face judgment. You were met with eyes that held galaxies, a presence so loving it unraveled every shame-soaked story you carried. In that sacred space, you were shown your life, not as a punishment, not as a test, but as a luminous journey. Every smile, every mistake, every silence. You didn't just watch it, you felt it. The ripples, the echoes, the unspoken tenderness behind every act of courage, every act of harm. And in that moment, with clarity beyond comprehension, you saw something else. The lesson behind each choice, the love buried inside every wound, the courage it took to incarnate, again, because you've done this before. Reincarnation isn't theory, it's memory. Buried deep beneath the noise of survival, your soul carries lifetimes of longing, of learning, of loving. And each time it returns, it doesn't aim for perfection. It aims for wholeness. You've been the healer, the warrior, the mother, the stranger, the one who hurt others, and the one who forgave. But not every soul transitions easily. Some arrive in the afterlife dazed, clutching old patterns like a child clutches a blanket. They carry bitterness, regret. They struggle to recognize their own light. And so the existence review becomes the salve, a chance to gently reawaken, a compassionate mirror held by guides of unspeakable patience. There's no blame in that space, only understanding, only love. And once the review completes, something extraordinary happens. The soul designs again, not from ego, not from punishment, but from truth. It chooses its next family, its next geography, its next set of lessons. It studies the emotional terrain of potential parents. It senses the ancestral wounds ready to be healed. It chooses the very environment most fertile for its next growth. Perhaps this is where you pause. Perhaps a memory stirs, a knowing. Because somewhere deep inside, part of you remembers this. You remember choosing your parents, not for how perfect they'd be, but for how much growth they'd ignite. You remember choosing this time, this decade, this chaos, this beauty, for the very challenges it contains. And even if your human heart doubts it, your soul knows. It knows the value of contrast. It understands that in the densest dark, even a flicker of light becomes transformational. So you came, not as punishment, not as exile, but as a divine volunteer. You arrived through a veil of forgetting, the memory of your soul's brilliance, temporarily dimmed by the weight of matter, time, and form, but the brilliance never vanished. It remained, glowing quietly beneath the surface, beneath fear, beneath shame, beneath distraction. You forgot, yes, but your forgetting was intentional, because rediscovery is more powerful than knowledge. Remembering is the soul's alchemy. That's why certain moments in life leave you breathless. A stranger's eyes, a melody, a quiet breeze that feels like a message. These aren't accidents. These are breadcrumbs, glimpses, echoes of a truth so profound your mind can't explain it, but your heart knows it by name. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like you'd been there before? Met someone and instantly felt connection or tension with no logical cause? That's memory stirring. That's your soul recognizing an agreement. Because before you came, you made contracts, spiritual agreements with other souls. To meet, to grow, to challenge, to heal. Some of those agreements were with those who would love you. Others with those who would break you open. You see, not all soulmates are wrapped in romantic sweetness. Some arrive wrapped in sandpaper. They irritate, provoke, and expose our most hidden wounds, not because they hate us, but because they agreed to help us evolve. Even betrayal can be a secret agreement. Even abandonment can be an invitation into profound self-love. And while it may not feel like it in the moment, your soul always recognizes the gift. There are soul companions too, those who walk with us for a season. They're the quiet presence that feels like home, the ones who understand us without explanation. They may not stay forever, but their impact echoes across lifetimes. And then there are those fleeting yet unforgettable connections, the kind that arrive unexpectedly, a passing glance, a brief conversation. Yet somehow, your world shifts. These are sacred intersections. They may last an hour or a day, or just long enough to change you. These are often what mystics call catalysts. Souls who appear to awaken something dormant. They don't need to stay. Their presence alone is the ignition. But amid all these connections, one truth holds steady. Your path is never random. Every encounter, every heartbreak, every miracle, part of a greater pattern. And woven into that pattern is your free will. Because while your soul crafted a blueprint, you still hold the pen. Your choices shape the journey, not in isolation, but in collaboration with your higher self. Even your mistakes are woven back into the tapestry. The path may twist, but it never vanishes. And here's the most liberating truth of all. You cannot miss your destiny. You can delay it, resist it, take the scenic route, but you cannot lose it. Your soul will whisper, then nudge, then if necessary, roar until you remember. The anxiety you feel, often it's not from being lost. It's from ignoring the call. Your purpose is not hiding, it's knocking. And sometimes that knock sounds like a restless heart, a job that no longer fits, a relationship that feels hollow, a yearning you can't explain. Listen to that. It's your soul trying to bring you home. But purpose isn't found in grand gestures or distant goals. It's found here, in presence, in choices made with awareness, in the courage to speak truth, in the softness to forgive, in the willingness to begin again. Your purpose is not a destination, it's a frequency, a state of being where your inner and outer worlds align. And alignment doesn't mean ease. Often it means discomfort. Growth rarely comes in silence. It arrives through fire, through the unraveling of who you thought you were. So who you truly are can rise. So if your life has felt like chaos lately, if you've been breaking, shedding, questioning everything, good, you're awakening. An awakening is messy. It's not a graceful ascent. It's a deep excavation, a sacred shaking, a dismantling of everything false. But beneath the rubble lies your essence. And that essence is vast, ancient, divine. You didn't come here to play small. You didn't incarnate just to blend in, to tick boxes, to survive. You came to embody light in form, to remember divinity in a world that forgets, and to live a truth so authentic it ripples through generations. There is no hierarchy in purpose. Some souls come to lead revolutions, others to plant gardens. Some come to sing healing into forgotten places, others to hold space in silence. Whether you build or nurture, speak or listen, if it comes from soul, it matters. And every step of your path, no matter how ordinary it seems, is sacred. The morning you choose patience instead of anger. The night you forgive even when no apology comes. The time you hold a stranger's gaze and smile. These are the revolutions that alter timelines, because consciousness doesn't shift in stadiums, it shifts in hearts. And the universe is listening. When you act from love, it echoes. When you choose integrity, it aligns stars. When you speak from truth, even trembling, the ground remembers. That's why your pain matters, because pain is a portal, not something to avoid, but something to enter, to listen to. It contains information. It holds messages. And beneath every ache lies a question. What is ready to be healed? You were never meant to carry your wounds like armor. You were meant to alchemize them into wisdom. And yes, it takes time. Healing doesn't always look like clarity. Sometimes it looks like confusion, like sleepless nights, like tears you don't understand. That's part of it. That's sacred too. Because every unraveling is a return, a homecoming. And your soul knew this. It knew you'd forget. It knew you'd fall. It knew some days you'd want to give up. So it left clues in your passions, in your childhood fascinations, in the dreams that refused to fade, even in the people who triggered your deepest fears. All of them point to your purpose. And when you pause, really pause, you'll feel it. That silent alignment. That moment when your breath slows and your heart whispers, "This is it. This is why I came." Sometimes it's a whisper of gratitude when the world expects complaint. Sometimes it's choosing stillness when everyone else is rushing. Sometimes it's saying no, or yes, or I forgive you. And sometimes it's daring to love again when your heart still remembers the shattering. Your purpose is woven into these moments. You don't need to chase it. You need to allow it. And yes, the soul chose some of your hardest moments, not because you deserved them, but because you were ready. Your strength was known before your first breath. Your courage predates your name, and so does your light. You don't earn your worth. You express it. You don't need to prove your value. You need to remember it. And you are not alone. From the moment you arrived, you were assigned guides, not as rulers, but as companions, as protectors, as soft whispers in your most silent hours. They walk beside you still, not always loud, not always obvious, but always there. Sometimes they send signs, a number, a feather, a coincidence too precise to ignore. Sometimes they speak through other people, through books, through dreams, through songs that touch you for no reason. And sometimes they simply hold you in your grief, waiting until you're ready to rise. You are surrounded by love, even when you feel abandoned, especially then. Because the truth is, your soul never walks alone. It is held, watched, celebrated. Even when you fall apart, your light is visible in realms you've forgotten. And there are beings, wise, ancient, luminous, who look at you with awe. Because you chose this path, you chose Earth. You chose this body, this lifetime, this complexity. And they honor you for it. You didn't come to escape life. You came to transform it, to bring heaven into earth through your choices, your energy, your awareness. You're a bridge between realms, a carrier of codes, an architect of awakening. And even now, even if you feel late, lost, or unworthy, your soul smiles because it knows you're awakening. And once you begin, there is no going back. You may hesitate, you may stumble, but the path beneath your feet is alive. It moves with you. It responds to your breath, your intentions, your decisions. And every time you choose to listen, to really listen to that quiet knowing within you, the path lights up again, even if only one step ahead. You don't need to see the entire map. You only need to trust the next impulse of truth. The soul's guidance doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It waits. It waits patiently for the moment you turn inward, away from noise, away from judgment, and ask, what do I truly desire? What am I here to give? Who am I becoming? These are not questions of the mind. They are invitations from the infinite within you. Sometimes the answers arrive like lightning. Other times they arrive slowly, like rain carving canyons. But they always arrive, not on your timeline, but always on time. And here's something most people never hear enough. Your longing is sacred. That ache for meaning, that yearning to matter, that desire to contribute something beautiful, it's not ego. It's your soul reminding you what you came to do. We were never meant to sleepwalk through life, never meant to numb ourselves with distractions or grind ourselves down with guilt. We were meant to feel deeply, to create wildly, to love ferociously, and above all, to remember that you are the dreamer in the dream, the question and the answer, the seed and the bloom. Everything in your life, even the parts you'd rather forget, has served your awakening. Nothing is wasted, not the failures, not the heartbreak, not the time you thought you lost. All of it has shaped your becoming. And yes, there are moments we wish we could rewrite, but even in those moments, your soul was learning, evolving, reaching. The regret you carry is not punishment. It's proof of your growth, proof that you're ready to live more consciously now. Because this moment, this breath, is a new page. The story isn't over. You are not the sum of your past. You are the potential of your next choice. And this is where free will becomes sacred. Not just a concept, but a creative force. Every time you choose compassion over judgment, presence over distraction, courage over comfort, you change everything, not just for yourself, but for every soul your life touches. And you don't need to know how it all ends. You only need to show up, heart open, willing to begin. There is no higher calling than to live your truth And your truth is not something you manufacture. It's something you uncover, layer by layer, breath by breath. And when you do, when you begin living from the center of your being, life responds. Synchronicities multiply, doors open, support arrives, and what once felt heavy begins to lift. Not because life becomes easier, but because you become aligned. You become a channel, not for perfection, but for presence, not for certainty, but for trust. You become a lighthouse for others still walking in fog. You become a living reminder that awakening is possible. That purpose is real. That love is stronger than fear. And yes, there will still be challenges, still shadows, still days when you forget. But the difference is, now you return faster. Now you remember sooner. Now you walk with the quiet authority of someone who has touched the eternal and chosen to stay. So I ask you, are you ready? Are you ready to live like your soul remembers? To stop waiting for signs and start becoming one? Because the truth is, you already are. You've always been. And now is the time to embody it. To rise with grace, to love without reason, to forgive without condition, to create without apology. You're not here by accident. You are a spark of the divine, wrapped in skin and story. A bridge between heaven and earth, a soul on fire. Let your life burn bright. Let it sing the truth you came to remember. Let it ripple through this world like a prayer answered in motion. And if you feel the call, don't wait. Let this moment be your turning point. Let it be the day you said yes. Yes to your path. Yes to your light. Yes to your soul. Because the world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more awakened hearts. And yours is ready. It always has been.